Hey guys, welcome to 3 Mississippi. Sid here. Thanks for clicking on the video. Today I want to talk to you guys about all the things that you should be doing that they don't want you doing. Let's talk about homesteading. There is nothing more natural than eating food straight from the source, whether it's having chickens in your own backyard that you're harvesting the eggs from or getting them from your local farmer's market. That has been becoming more and more popular the last several years. But over the last 3 to 4 years, homesteading has become immensely popular for many reasons. Some of it, I think, emerged out of boredom. We were trapped at home and a lot of stores were closed. And so people started wanting to try to have a few chickens in their backyard for eggs. And they wanted to start maybe trying their hand at a sourdough starter. And we were already homeschooling our kids. So, you know, just kind of taking on some of those traditions and moving forward with them. When you think about it, it's really only been the last 3 or 4 generations that we really got away from raising our own food with the food revolution, as it were, where TV dinners became very normalized in the 60s and 70s. That really kind of took over, and we didn't have our milk getting delivered on our doorstep, and everything had to be pasteurized and preserved and pumped full of things in order to make it shelf stable. And over the years, I would say we've gotten sicker and lazier and, well, dumber, really. Uh, People don't understand where their food comes from. They don't understand the effort and the hard work that goes into raising and harvesting that food. And people have become kind of numb to it. They just think they can run to the local store and grab some food. Lots of communities and cities have rules about whether or not you can have roosters in your yard or chickens at all. There used to be a time where that wasn't a thing. We didn't have zoning for that. People just raised their food and raised their animals. Pussy's very excited that we're hanging out in the goat pen together right now. I think getting back to that is so important. Food is medicine, guys. And I find it interesting that the FDA, Food and Drug, being the key words there, is in charge of deciding of what's allowed to be in some of our foods. If you go to the grocery store and pick up any box or can off the shelf, odds are you're going to find a list of ingredients that you A, can't pronounce, and B, are probably nothing that's based in real food at all. And is that really something that you want to be putting in your body? Convenience says maybe it is, and maybe that's what people are asking for and what they're wanting, because over the last few generations, we have moved away from raising our own food, from growing our own meat, from harvesting our own vegetables. And the distance that we have from our food has really caused quite a chasm, and the ability to make us really dependent on consumerism, on the government, on all of the things that we should not be depending on. I think if the last few years taught us anything, it's that we need to learn how to do these things ourselves. And now, granted, I know that a lot of you live in cities and live in places where you have a postage size stamp yard, and you can't be, having goats that you're raising that you're going to get, milk and meat from. And you can't have a whole flock of chickens to provide you with eggs and meat. And I understand that. But chances are a lot of you aren't watching this video. A lot of the people that are watching this video right now are people that are wanting to start a homesteading journey, or people that are already doing a lot of those things and starting raising their own food, preserving their own food. I've got a couple of freezers that are stacked with venison and chicken and corn, and I've got shelves full of broth that we made from our own ducks that we raised, from our own chickens that we raised and processed, and our own venison that we harvested off of this land. All of those things are things that we need. They're things that we need to be able to know how to do. And I think that kind of going back to our roots just a few generations ago, when it was so normal to make your own batches of broth, to make your own cheese, to make your own butter, to do all of these things yourself. And even if you can't raise the cow, even if you can't raise the goat and milk it, you can probably find somebody not too far away from you that does, that you can maybe get those items from. Are you going to pay more for them? Potentially. But is the quality of those items going to be exponentially better? 100%. You know, the government doesn't want you drinking milk that hasn't been pasteurized. They don't want people selling milk from their animals that hasn't gone through all of their certifications. That's ridiculous. When you're pasteurizing something, you're killing off a lot of the things that are good for you in it. It's one of the reasons why we ferment a lot of our peppers and we make probiotics and hot sauces and things like that, because that all goes to improve your gut health. When we strip away the way that our food is raised, and it's done in a factory way, and it's done with chemicals, and it's done with crazy engineering, we are stripping away some of the basic things in that food that allow our body to absorb the nutrients, that allow our bodies to take in the sugars from that fruit because we've eaten the peel of that apple and it's got the fiber in it that helps our body to break down the sugars. You know, all of those things add up when we strip it away and we just start drinking boxed fruit juice, you know, instead of eating the apple with the peel. Imagine that. God had a perfect design when he made all of the plants and the animals. And that perfect design requires us to follow the law of nature. And I think that we've gotten away from that. And dare I say it, our country, consumerism, uh, the media, the status quo, whatever you want to call it, all of those forces working together uh, don't want us to be healthy, because healthcare is a big business, right? It's a huge business. They don't want us to heal our bodies with proper food that is our medicine. They want us to go to our local drugstore and be pumped full of more substances. That's what they want. So they don't like it when we talk to each other and when we trade things together. If I have eggs and I trade you for fresh milk, or if you have a certain kind of meat and I have a different kind of meat, they don't want us doing that. And I get it, you know, somewhere along the line, somebody probably got sick at some point. But I'd be willing to bet that more people have gotten more ill off of eating things out of boxes long term than they ever have from eating off the land. I would guarantee that all the man-made foods and all the man-made chemicals and ingredients that we're pumping into our bodies in the form of nutrition every day, those are the problem. Those are the things that are making us sick. Those are the things that are making us dumb. Those are the things that are making us lose our attention span. Those are the things that are making us unhealthy and age more and feel sluggish and all of those things that we chalk up to modern day life. A lot of that can be traced back to just what you're putting in your body. We've been regulated on everything in this country over the last really the last 50 years, I would say. It just has been kind of snowballing, and we've lost control over so much of our lives because we've just allowed it to happen. And the one thing that you could do today to take some of that independence back and to get some of your health back and to be more independent from the cog, don't just be another cog in the wheel, is to eat real food, guys. Eat real food. Eat things that come out of the ground. Eat things that come from the animals. Eat things the way God intended, right? I mean, there's so many things that we take for granted that are conveniences in our life, right? And I have found this, that there is far less waste You know, people complain like, oh, my kids won't eat that, or we won't eat leftovers, so we throw so much away. I guarantee you, if you're raising that animal, if you're harvesting that animal, if you're breaking down the meat, if you're canning and freeze drying that meat, and doing all of those things to put in the work to store that food, that when you make that meal, you won't waste any of it, because you know what effort went into it. You know the sacrifice that went into it. You know the time that went into making that. And you will use it all. And teach your kids young. I have so many people that say like, oh, my kids won't eat vegetables. My kids won't eat fruit. My kids won't eat that. Frankie never did that. From a very early age, once I was done breastfeeding her and weaning her onto real food and all of that, Mike had a garden at our first house. It was a small garden because we had a small backyard, but he grew and made all of her baby food. And it was simple ingredients. It was like cooked carrot, cooked broccoli, ground up, a little bit of water. And that was what she ate. That was her introduction to solid food. And that kid then at 2 years old, 3 years old, was out in the garden picking carrots out of the dirt, wiping them off on her pants and eating it right out of the dirt. Radishes, Brussels sprouts, all of those things. She was picking them out of the garden and just eating them raw. You can teach your kids to appreciate those things. And they can understand that, sometimes we might go get ice cream, or we might have a pizza night out with our friends or something. And that's fine. I'm not bagging on that. Okay. You're going to do that. Everybody's going to do that sometimes. Okay. That's fine. But the majority of the time, you need to be eating real food. And the age old saying, well, I don't know if it's age old, but it's been around for a while, is only shop the outside edge of the grocery store. That's where all the fresh produce is. That's where all the fresh meat, a lot of your grains and things will all be on the outside edge. Everything that has not been processed, with the exception of you'll find lunch meats and things like that that have been processed. But for the most part, that's where you're going to find your fresh foods. And now, again, I realize that not everybody can grow their own food and has acres to do so. But if you at least shop the outside edge and really pay attention to what you're buying and what you're putting in your body versus going down the center aisles where everything's in boxes, because that's where you start to get in trouble. That's where you're ingesting the chemicals and you're eating the things that are going to make you sick. And those are the things that add up over time. But anybody can preserve food. And I bet if you can find a local farm or a farmer's market near you during the season, obviously wintertime is not the time to go find those things, but it's the time to start planning for next season. You can buy some of those items that they have during harvest in bulk, and you can freeze dry them. You can pressure can them. You can make jams and jellies. You can make probiotic drinks that will last a long time and ferment things. All of these things are things that you can do. And yes, buying some of these things, buying a pressure canner, buying a dehydrator, some of those things, there's an initial startup cost. I will give you that. You're investing in your health and you're investing in your independence. I don't even think it anymore just about like sustainability. I think with the direction that things have gone in our country, and I think that those of us that have kind of woken up to the fact that these last few years, the amount of control that was demonstrated over us was a little disheartening. You know, I know, for example, where we lived, you had to line up to get into the grocery store because they would only let so many people in at once. Very reminiscent of, growing up in the 80s and remembering the hearing and seeing on the news the bread lines in Russia and things like that. No one should have that much control over your food, over feeding your family, over what's going in your body, what chemicals are going into your body. No one should have that control but you. All of the goodness, all of the nutrients that's in the soil when we farm correctly, when we strip graze or rotational graze and do rotational crops, when we do all these things, that improves the health of the land. And when we improve the health of the land, we're improving the microbiome and all the nutrients that live in that soil. And when we deplete it over and over and over and over and over again by planting the same crop on the same spot, you're using dead soil to create plants that have been messed with so that they'll grow properly with no bugs on them and things. You're growing nutrient deficient food that we're feeding to the masses. When you have healthy soil and you do as God intended and you take care of the land and you reap the things that you've sown into that land, you are going to have healthy food and healthy animals, and you're going to have a higher, more nutrient dense product out of those things than anything that you could buy at the store. They're going to have higher vitamin B12. They're going to have better omegas in your eggs. You're going to have all of these things that you need in your system that are coming from the soil. They're coming from the soil. Since we've moved to Mississippi and we've had to rebuild a lot of infrastructure that we had spent a long time building when we were still in California. And for those of you that are maybe new to our channel, welcome. Yes, we came from California. Mike's originally from Tennessee. I was born and raised in California, as was our daughter until now. Now she's been raised in Mississippi. But we kept moving further and further away from the city until we ended up in a little mountain farming town, really. And we were very much isolated in a lot of ways from the craziness of what was going on in the city over the last several years, as long as we didn't leave our mountain. But we were growing our own. I hadn't bought meat at the store, guys, when we were living there for years. Ever since after our first full year there, I did not buy meat at the store. I traded for fish. We had our chicken, we had our duck, we had turkeys, we had quail. We made all our own broths. Mike had a decent sized garden, so I bought really limited vegetables and things at the store from other local farms that were able to produce more than I was. And we preserved a lot of it. We built, in fact, so much that we built a giant pantry in the old house. So here, this first little over a year now since we've been here, a year and a half, we did harvest some deer. We harvested some chickens that I raised. This next year, we're doing more chickens. We'll probably start quail this year as well, potentially rabbits. And I'm doing turkeys again starting this next year. I won't have to buy meat at the store. Between whatever we harvest as far as venison goes this year and the things that we'll be growing, we are going to be starting sheep. And hopefully I will be able to get Caroline and Anne to kid this year, and I'll have a good supply of milk and meat due to that. I like to plan ahead. This is the time of year I start planning the next season and thinking about furthering our independence. When we moved here, in some ways it was a giant step back because it didn't have anything, but we had to kind of start over this year. So I understand how daunting that can feel, but the independence and the health benefits of remembering that food is our medicine and that we're in charge of what we put in our bodies. And as long as we know where that food comes from and we can read the ingredient in it, each food product should have one ingredient. Really, it should. If you pick up a package and it's got a list of chemicals on the back that's a mile long, that's not food. And they don't want you to do that. They want you sick and tired. They want you tied to their whims of what they think consumerism should be as far as our food supply goes. And we should not be nearly as dependent on that as we are. Doing some things for ourselves, helping each other learn how to do those things, it's a game changer. It really is. And you'll notice a difference in your life. You'll notice a difference in your health. You'll notice a difference in the things that you appreciate when you're able to eat real whole food that you've made yourself. I don't think anybody can really say that they're happy with the majority of the direction that things are going in this country, let alone the world, the last few years. But I will say this, I do have hope. I'll tell you why. I have hope because people are waking up and realizing that they need to be more self-sufficient. They need to know where their food comes from. They need to have their own supply of it. They need to know how to preserve it and how to properly utilize the meat that they can grow or get in its purest form so that they can have their own grocery store in their pantry and on their property. People are wanting to get back to a more simple way of living when it comes to all of that. And I wholeheartedly am for it. It was why we moved to that little mountain town that we lived in Ramona, because we wanted to raise our own food. We wanted to not have to rely on the world for that. And we started that journey in 2015. And here we are coming to the end of 2023, and a lot of other people have woken up to that renaissance of let's get back to what was only normal a few generations ago, but now to some seems so bizarre, of raising and processing and growing our own food, utilizing it to heal our bodies and to nourish us. That's what we should be doing. We shouldn't be letting the government tell us what pills we should be popping on the insurance treadmill. And that's not to say that some of those things don't have their place, but they're not the only thing. And not be so dependent on waiting in line to be let into the grocery store because the government decided that's what we should do. You know, and being in one of the strictest states during the lovely year of 2020, I can tell you that I couldn't get out of there fast enough when we could. And now we're in a place where we can harvest deer off our land, we can raise animals and enjoy them and have them nourish our bodies. And I couldn't be more grateful for what we have here. And it's not for everybody, and I get that. But I'm happy and hopeful because so many people are taking baby steps in that journey. Or some of you, big giant leaps. Kudos to you. But just the fact that you're watching this video at least means you're curious. At least means that you want to either try to be a little bit healthier, try to be a little bit more self-sufficient. Whatever the reason is for you, I applaud you because those are all good reasons. There's nothing wrong with enjoying what God has given us and using it the way it was intended to be used, to heal and nourish our bodies, not to drug them and make them more sick. Bottom line is, guys, you have to be able to be independent, and you have to be able to know that you can take care of yourself and feed your family when other forces step in and tell you that you shouldn't, or try to block you from doing that, or try to pump you so full of chemicals that you become complacent, that you become oblivious to what's going on around you because you've just been conditioned into compliancy. That's not what we want for our children. That's not what we want for our world. It starts with individuals. It starts with people getting back to their roots. It starts with us taking back the most basic thing, which is filling your body with nutrients and knowing where it comes from. And I know I might sound like a broken record when it comes to this stuff because we've talked to you guys about some of this stuff before. Listen, as somebody who worked in the healthcare industry for 20 years, it's an industry. They want you to take whatever the newest thing is that they can prescribe for you. And they want you on it for a long time. And then they want you on the next one. They want you constantly taking meds, and they want you not to question it. And that's what they want. But that's not what we want. The things that they allow, the chemicals and the products that they allow to go into our food in this country that are banned in so many other places, that should be our number one tip off, that our industry, our healthcare industry, our food industry are broken. And it's up to us as individuals to hop off the Ferris wheel and make a change with it. So I challenge you guys to do that. I challenge you guys to learn a new skill. Learn, if you don't already know how to water bath can some jam, learn how to do that and make it. If you don't know how to pressure can meat, learn how to do it. Learn how to dehydrate meat. Learn how to ferment your food. Learn how to do one of those skills that you don't already know how to do and add that to your back pocket, because those are all things that we should be doing. Those are all things that we should be able to do again. We have more conveniences to do them now than they did 50, 60, 100 years ago. Go in on it with a neighbor or a friend. Share a canner, share a dehydrator. There's always ways to figure it out, to share the cost, to build your community, to build it with like-minded people. And I 100% believe that you can do it, because we shouldn't be relying on them at all for anything at all. Thanks for joining me today, guys. I appreciate you. And as always, stay blessed, safety's off.